My name is Eric. I'm 29, and until last year, I genuinely believed I understood what family truly meant. Not the picture-perfect greeting card ideal, but the kind you build your entire life around, even if it means shouldering more than your fair share of the burden. I've always been the reserved one, the reliable son, the one who remembers birthdays with flowers and steps in when no one else even notices things are falling apart. But I never imagined I'd become the sole support system for a family that consistently treated me as expendable. That shift happened gradually, almost imperceptibly, like rot spreading beneath the floorboards until the whole structure collapses. Growing up, I was the middle child. My older brother, Adam, was the golden boy varsity football, charismatic, always surrounded by friends. My younger sister, Mia, was the princess from the day she was born, and me, I was the one who earned B+ grades and was constantly told I wasn't reaching my full potential. Honestly, I didn't really mind. I kept my focus, earned a scholarship, moved out, and eventually launched my own small IT firm. By some miracle, it finally took off after 3 grueling years of instant noodles, 16-hour days, and being ignored by every investor I approached. The ironic part, when I was struggling, they were nowhere to be found. But the moment money started coming in, suddenly I was family again. It began subtly. My dad asked if I could help with the rest of Adam's car payments, just until his promotion. Then came Mia's private college tuition because financial aid wasn't quite enough. My mom needed help with roof repairs, then the heating system, then the kitchen remodel she'd always envisioned. Just like that, I was financially supporting 3 households, still receiving texts like, "Can you Venmo me for groceries?" Initially, I didn't object. I was thankful I could assist. I even persuaded myself I was building something meaningful, perhaps a legacy. I imagined one day I'd reflect and say I improved life for those I cared about, but the way they treated it as if it were an entitlement, as if my contributions were nothing out of the ordinary, that started to bother me last Thanksgiving, became the breaking point. I hosted, not to impress, but because I finally owned a home spacious enough for everyone. I had it catered, cleaned, and even set up a fire pit in the yard. Not a single person offered to help, not even with the dishes. Adam made a toast midway through dinner, rambling about how fortunate we were to have each other and how family always comes through, without once acknowledging I'd covered the entire expense. Mia brought her new boyfriend and barely glanced up from her phone, and my dad, he spent the whole evening lecturing about how much harder things were in his day and how kids today have it easy. I smiled and endured it all, but internally, I was already disconnecting. Then came the night. Everything unraveled. It was a random Tuesday, maybe 2 months later. I'd just wrapped up a long meeting and arrived home to a voicemail from my dad. His voice was curt, weary, and sharp in that distinct way only fathers can be. He declared, "All you do is take. You've never contributed anything memorable to this family. If you had any self-respect, you'd stop acting like we owe you something and just leave." I was stunned. For a second, I thought I'd misheard, so I played it again. "All you do is take." I didn't yell. I didn't call back. I just stared at the message for a long time, then walked to the window and gazed at the city lights I once cherished. Something inside me simply gave way, quietly, like an old hinge finally snapping under too much strain. I packed a bag that night and left. No dramatic goodbyes, no grand announcements. I even instructed my assistant to halt all outgoing payments linked to family accounts. Just a clean, silent break. 3 days passed, then a week radio silence. No calls, no texts. It took them almost a full month to even notice. Mia was the first to realize. She called me late one Friday night, her voice trembling. "Eric, hey, I just logged into the school portal and my tuition didn't go through this month. Did something happen with the account?" I could hear the panic she was desperately trying to suppress, that faint casualness you adopt when you're trying not to sound desperate. I replied with a single text, "Thought I never gave this family anything." No follow-up, no explanation, just that. She didn't respond, but within the hour I had 4 missed calls from my mom, 2 from Adam, and 1 from an unknown number. The voicemail from my dad was darkly humorous. "Eric, we need to talk. Whatever this little stunt is, it's not funny. Your sister's future is on the line. No apology, just demands." That same old tone, implying, "You owe us." That weekend, I flew to Denver. I'd never been, but I needed a place far enough to feel like I'd escaped their orbit. I stayed in a small Airbnb overlooking the mountains, sleeping better than I had in years. For the first time in a long time, I didn't check my email or open any messages. I just let the world spin without me. And back home, that's when everything began to crumble. Mia's school sent a notice of impending withdrawal due to non-payment. Adam's car, still unpaid for, was repossessed. My parents' mortgage payment bounced. Just like that, the foundation they'd built on my quiet compliance shattered. They started contacting extended family, spinning their version of events, how I'd abruptly cut them off and abandoned my responsibilities. But here's the thing, you can't rewrite a story when too many people already know the truth. A few of my cousins, they knew. They'd witnessed the pattern for years. I received a message from one of them, Emma, my mum's niece. She wrote, "I've always admired your patience, but I'm glad you finally stopped being their safety net." That message resonated more deeply than I anticipated. Because the truth is, I didn't seek revenge. I sought peace. But once you remove the leverage they used to control you, once they realize they need you far more than you ever needed them, that's when the true unraveling commences. I spent a week in Denver mostly doing nothing. Each morning I'd walk to a small coffee shop near the Airbnb, journal for a bit, then wander downtown, simply to remind myself what uninterrupted silence felt like. No buzzing phone, no obligations, no one asking, "Can you just do me one more favor?" At first, that tranquility felt foreign, as if I had to unlearn the habit of bracing for someone else's disappointment. By the second week, I'd rented a car and driven out to Boulder. I hiked alone, something I'd always wanted to do but never got around to, because every time I planned a trip, someone in the family needed a bailout, a broken AC, a late credit card bill. Mia once called me from a resort in Cancun, claiming she'd lost her wallet and needed emergency cash wired to her. That memory surfaced as I stood at the edge of a cliff trail, the wind cutting through my jacket, the entire valley stretching out below me. I laughed out loud, a genuine laugh that echoed off the rocks. It took 3 full weeks before my mum finally broke the silence with something more substantial than passive-aggressive voicemails. She emailed me, the subject line stark, "We need you to come home." No greeting, just a lengthy block of text that began with, "I don't know what's gotten into you," spiraled into, "Your father is furious," then, "We've done so much for you," and concluded with, "Family doesn't abandon family." I stared at it for a long time. Family doesn't abandon family, except they did. Every time they treated me like a walking ATM, every birthday they forgot, every time they took money without a word of thanks. Every holiday where I sat in the background while Adam delivered his speeches and Mia was showered with gifts. They didn't call it abandonment, they called it tradition. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my lawyer, Daniel, who had helped me establish a trust fund years ago. I instructed him to begin transferring the remaining educational payments to a scholarship program for first-generation college students, the ones who genuinely needed help, the ones who wouldn't secretly mock me while depleting my bank account. I also asked him to investigate who was listed on the deed for the lake house, the one my parents used every summer, which I'd paid off in full under the false premise it would be a shared family investment. Turns out, my name was still on the paperwork. So, that Sunday morning, I made a decision. I booked a flight back home, not to reconcile or succumb to guilt, but to gather evidence. I didn't inform anyone I was coming. I landed around noon, picked up a rental, and drove directly to the house, the very house I'd helped renovate when Dad threatened to sell it, unless someone paid to fix the water damage. It looked the same, familiar yet artificial, like a movie set designed to resemble a home. As I pulled into the driveway, I spotted Adam's old pickup truck parked outside. I assumed he'd moved back in after the repossession. I didn't knock. I simply walked in with the spare key my mum had forgotten I possessed. The moment I stepped into the living room, I heard voices. "He's being dramatic," Adam was saying. "He'll come crawling back once he gets over himself." Mia's voice followed. Softer. "I just don't get why he's doing this. I mean, it's not that much money to him, is it?" My dad grumbled something I couldn't quite discern. Then, loud and clear, "Eric's always been the weakest, hiding behind his computer, acting like money makes him special." I stood there in the hallway, unseen, as they continued to dissect me, as if I wasn't the reason the lights were even on. I didn't cry, I didn't storm in, I didn't even feel anger, just confirmation. They never truly saw me. I quietly backed out and drove to the lake house. I walked through the front door, took a long look at the open-plan kitchen, the wall of family photos that conspicuously lacked any of me, and began taking pictures for the real estate listing. By nightfall, my lawyer had everything he needed to initiate the sale. That was Saturday. On Monday, I sent one final message to the family group chat. You said I never gave this family anything, so I'm finally giving you what you've always acted like you wanted. Distance. No more tuition, no more car payments, no more roof repairs. Sell your own memories. I'm out. I left the group chat and blocked them all. I thought that would be the end of it, but what I hadn't grasped was the sheer depth of their financial dependence and how rapidly it would collapse once I severed every connection. Within the week, Mia was facing expulsion. Adam was fired after missing too many shifts, trying to figure things out. My parents, well, let's just say they're bank-called with inquiries about a mortgage they could no longer afford. And me, I was already halfway to the airport for a new adventure, this time to Tokyo first class. No guilt, no strings attached. But the real surprise came when they tried to crawl back. I was somewhere over the Pacific when my phone finally caught up to the chaos I'd left behind. Dozens of missed calls. Voicemails from unfamiliar numbers, probably Mia's friends or someone attempting to intervene on my family's behalf. There were texts from my dad that began as threats but quickly dissolved into desperate, fragmented sentences like, "We didn't mean it that way," and "You're still our son." That last one made me laugh. I didn't listen to a single voicemail or open any attachments. I just watched the notifications pile up like a silent slideshow of their panic. It's truly ironic how people who claim you've never given anything suddenly recall precisely how much you contributed once it's gone. Tokyo was everything I needed. Clean, quiet, anonymous. I explored temples and neon-lit arcades, allowing my mind to breathe in a way I hadn't known was possible. No guilt weighing on my shoulders. No unexpected emergencies. For the first time in my life, I was simply me, not someone's backup plan, not the family's problem solver. 2 weeks into the trip, I finally unblocked just one person. Emma, my cousin. She'd sent a single message during the entire fallout. No pleading, no drama. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. Not to convince you, just to listen. I met up with her after I returned. We sat in a cafe near her apartment, and she brought her laptop. "I want to show you something," she said, sliding it across the table. It was a Reddit thread, of all things. Mia had posted under a throwaway account, soliciting financial help to stay in school after an unexpected family emergency. She spun a narrative that portrayed me as unstable, claiming I'd abandoned the family without cause and was having a breakdown. People were actually donating money, strangers. Emma looked at me, her lips pressed thin. "She's raised almost $6,000 so far. I figured you should know." I stared at the screen, feeling a knot in my stomach that was more sadness than anger. There it was again, that same story, twisted to fit the victim role. Only this time, she was doing it publicly, monetizing it, weaponizing strangers' sympathy. And worst of all, she still didn't comprehend the damage she'd inflicted. That night, I didn't unleash a furious post or confront her directly. I did something quieter. I took screenshots of every payment I'd made toward her education, bank transfers, tuition receipts, even the textbook funds I'd wired during her freshman year. I uploaded them to a private Imgra album, no names, no dramatic captions, just dates, dollar amounts, and payment confirmations. Then, I posted one anonymous comment on the thread: "Before you donate, maybe ask where the other $90,000 went. Some people forget who helped them when the help stops." It didn't go viral. It didn't need to. But within 24 hours, her post was removed by moderators for suspicious activity, and the comments turned negative. That was the first genuine consequence any of them faced. The second arrived a week later when I received a certified letter at my office. It was from my dad, typed like some formal legal notice. It began with, "We are formally requesting a meeting to discuss the breakdown of our family dynamic." I almost choked, laughing. It was as if they were trying to hold a board meeting to fix what they'd broken. But buried within the legal jargon was the true motive. They wanted a portion of the proceeds from the lake house sale. Apparently, they believed they had emotional equity in the property. I handed the letter to Daniel without a word. He read it, smirked, and asked, "Want me to send them a reminder that emotional equity doesn't hold up in court?" I nodded. Then, we did one better. We sent them a copy of the original agreement, one Dad had signed years ago when I first offered to pay for the lake house. It clearly stated, in his own words, "I acknowledge that this home is purchased by and remains the property of Eric last name. I relinquish all future claims." He'd either forgotten or hoped I had. That letter silenced them quickly, but the quiet didn't last. Not once word spread that I was selling the main house too. You see, while I was in Tokyo, Daniel and I had been quietly working on a side project. It turned out that years ago I'd loaned my parents a substantial sum under a verbal agreement when they couldn't keep up with the mortgage. They'd never repaid me. Daniel meticulously tracked every deposit, compiled every wire transfer, and we filed a lien on the house. They now owed me well over $80,000, which legally allowed me to force a sale. Emma called me that night. Eric, they're panicking. Your mom called mine in tears. Your dad's threatening to go on social media. I sighed. Let him. I've got receipts. Let's see who wins that PR war. But what I didn't tell her was that I wasn't doing this for revenge anymore. I was doing it for closure. Because what none of them understood was that I had given them everything, my time, my savings, my loyalty, and they'd mistaken it all for weakness. They thought I was a faucet they could turn on whenever they were thirsty. And now they were learning what true thirst felt like. Yet, the most satisfying moment hadn't even arrived, because on the day the house went up for auction, I walked through the front door one last time. I parked across the street the morning of the auction. The air carried that sharp, crisp chill that always settled over our neighborhood in early fall. I sat in the car for a minute, just observing. It was surreal, seeing the home I grew up in, this place that had absorbed so much history, joy and bitterness, now with a small white sign staked in the front lawn. Notice of foreclosure auction. Today, no trespassing. I got out, hands in my pockets, walking slowly toward the house. The door was already open. Daniel was inside, speaking with the auction representative, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard and a nonsense demeanor. He nodded when he saw me. You don't have to be here for this, he said gently. I want to be, and I did not for vengeance, not for the spectacle, but because this moment deserved a witness, someone to see it, feel it, and ensure it didn't just slip by like everything else I'd silently endured over the years. I walked through the living room slowly, as if trying to absorb it all one last time. The dent in the hardwood from when Adam threw a baseball inside, the faded stain on the carpet where Mia spilled nail polish and blamed me, the wall where my parents used to pin up report cards and drawings until they quietly stopped adding mine. It was strange how little of myself I saw there, as if I'd been a ghost in my own family story. I stepped into the kitchen next. That one hit harder. I remembered late nights helping Mum prepare for holiday dinners, scrubbing dishes while she pretended not to hear Dad ranting in the other room, laughing with Emma over burnt pies and undercooked turkeys. And now, it was just a kitchen, a box of walls and forgotten efforts. There was a photo still on the counter, one of the entire family taken 2 Christmases ago, at my expense. I remembered paying the photographer's deposit, the matching outfits they insisted on, and how they cropped me out when they posted it online. I picked up the photo, looked at it for a long moment, then turned it face down. By noon, a few cars had started to arrive, a couple of serious bidders, some curious neighbors, and then, finally, my family. They pulled up in Dad's old Chevy, all crammed in like some bizarre family road trip. Mia got out first, her face blotchy, eyes red-rimmed behind oversized sunglasses. Adam followed, scowling, clearly there to play the enforcer. And then my parents. Mum looked utterly worn down, 10 years older than the last time I'd seen her. Dad, well, he still walked like he owned the ground. He spotted me instantly. Eric, he called out, his voice low and bristling. We need to talk. Now. I didn't move. He strode up, Adam trailing him like a shadow. You're really doing this, Dad said. You're going to humiliate your own family over what, exactly? Some perceived slight. I looked him in the eye for the first time in years. It's not a slight, I said calmly. It's a pattern, and it ends today. You ungrateful little, he started, but I raised a hand. Don't, just don't. Mia joined them now, her voice cracking. I'm going to lose my scholarship because of this. I had to drop 2 classes already. Why are you doing this to us? I turned to her. I paid for your first 3 years, every tuition bill, every textbook. You never said thank you, not once. Instead, you let them convince you I was the problem. I didn't, she began. You posted online that I was unstable, I interjected, pulling out my phone. You lied to strangers for money, and now you want sympathy. Her face crumpled. Mum finally spoke, her voice strained. Eric, families don't do this to each other. No, I said. Families don't take like this. You took everything, my time, my money, my trust, and when I stopped giving, you called me selfish. The auctioneer's voice rang out then, sharp and professional. We'll begin the auction in 5 minutes. Dad looked around, suddenly less sure of himself. You can't do this. You wouldn't even have this house if it weren't for us. You're right, I said. So I'm taking it back. They stood there, rooted to the driveway, helpless for the first time in years, and I walked away. The house sold within the hour to a retired couple from out of town, looking for a place near their grandkids. They paid in full. I signed the paperwork, handed Daniel the keys, and never looked back. 3 weeks later, the moving truck arrived. My parents tried to fight it, claiming they had rights, but the court order was unambiguous. They had 30 days, from the date of the sale, no exceptions. They didn't even pack everything, just grabbed what they could and left the rest in piles. Years of clutter. Boxes of old trophies, broken appliances, forgotten memories. One of the movers found a journal of mine tucked in a box labeled junk. It was from high school. I flipped through it. Every page was filled with goals. Get into college, start a business, buy a house, take care of my family. Funny how none of those dreams ended the way I'd envisioned. I donated the furniture, trashed the rest. Emma helped me close out the estate. She was the only one who remained neutral throughout it all, and the only one I truly trusted. When it was over, she hugged me for a long time. "You did the right thing," she whispered, "even if it doesn't feel like it yet." And she was right. It didn't feel good, not in the traditional sense. There was no soaring victory, no final confrontation with slow clapping applause, just silence. A sharp, echoing silence that slowly gave way to peace. I moved shortly after that, buying a loft. In a different city, smaller, simpler, but entirely mine. No hidden bills, no lingering guilt. The calls eventually ceased, the emails dried up, and over time, even the bitterness faded. I didn't hate them, I simply disconnected, like finally severing the last thread of a frayed rope that had been dragging me underwater for years. One night I sat out on my balcony, sipping tea, watching the lights flicker in the building across the street. I thought about that last Thanksgiving, about Adam's toast, about the way they all smiled as if they were in a commercial, completely oblivious that the glue holding them together was crumbling. And I realized something profound. They were never truly a family. They were a system that only functioned as long as I remained silent, remained useful, remained small, and now, they had to learn how to stand without me. A few months later, I received a message and email from Mia. I don't expect a response. I just wanted to say, I get it now, and I'm sorry. I read it twice, then once more, and then I archived it, not out of spite, but because I no longer needed closure from them. I already had it from myself. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.